All right, hello guys. We are back. It has been a while. I believe I haven't seen you guys in about 3 weeks. That's crazy. But it has been crazy times with travel for work. And then, of course, last week, or just this past week, NAB 2018, which of course has a big part in what we're talking about today, and I'll get to that. But first off, guys, it is great to be back and live with you. It is Saturday, April 14th, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, so we are back, we are live, and we're going to hang out here, and today we're going to talk about just a little bit about my trip to NAB, and specifically we're going to dive into the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. So that was obviously one of the things that was announced at the show. But if you want to check out some of the other stuff that happened at the show, I actually did something a little bit different this year. Instead of doing booth interviews and putting out a whole bunch of content and sort of killing myself while I'm there, this year I did something different, and I made a vlog style video taking you with me for day one of the show. And so I just posted that video. It went live on YouTube about an hour ago, so I'll put a link in the description and a card up here for you guys so that you can check that thing out. It was pretty fun. I got to meet Peter McKinnon, so that's pretty awesome. But of course, one of the things that I saw at the show and that was featured there was this new Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. I did get to go to the Blackmagic press conference right there on Monday morning before the show opened to get all the details about it. And then I also went back to their booth and had a private sit down with it, away from the masses and all that kind of stuff. So I got a private sit down time with the camera. Got to be hands-on with it, got to ask a lot of, difficult questions, got some answers, got some couldn't be answers, and stuff like that. So what I'm going to go through today with you guys is we're going to take a look at the specs of this camera as we know them to be right now. I'm going to tell you guys what my first impressions were after being hands-on with the camera and asking my questions of Dan, the rep over there at Blackmagic. And if you guys are here tuning in live, please go ahead and submit your questions, and I'll try and answer them as best I can based off of the information that was given to me. So like I said, this is a live show, so if you're in here live, you can go ahead and comment in the chat. And it will pop up right here. So we'll have our live ticker of all of our comments and everything as they come in. So please feel free to let me know what you guys think of this camera. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Are you pre-ordering it? Is it not for you? And obviously, if you have any questions about the camera along the way, please let me know. And I'll try and answer it. Looks like we've already got Gear Jones in here. I assume that's Mr. Derek Allen. How you doing, buddy? It was good to see you at the show. I am still stuck on Pacific time, so I'm dealing with jet lag and just being tired and trying to catch up on work and all that stuff. But I'm still riding that NAB high, so today we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna dive into this camera. So first, let's start on their website and see what they've got there. So let's see. Okay, guys, so here we go. Officially on their website, here it is in their typical fashion with, like models holding cameras. They always do these style of photos. But here it is, the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. We've been asking for it. We've been wanting it for years. I was really hoping it would come out last year, but it is finally here. It is a thing. So that's pretty cool. And of course, it was teased all over before the show with the billboards and all that fun stuff. So everybody was really excited about this, but we're going to see if it was a letdown or not, or whatever. So here it is. For those of you who haven't seen it, here is the camera body. The guy is holding it right there. And this is what it looks like. So it is a micro 4/3 camera in terms of the mount. No more of that Super 16 that we had in the old one that had a crazy crop factor. So that's nice. They say it has a 4/3 size, a full 4/3 size sensor in it so that you don't get as much of a crop factor. So I'm not sure exactly what the crop factor is. You know, it might be not quite as much as the 2x that you get on traditional Micro Four Thirds. It might be more like a 1.8, but I am not actually sure of that. But it does take Micro Four Thirds lenses, and it is not that teeny tiny postage stamp Super 16 that we had in the previous camera. So it's got a lot of stuff here, but you know, here's all their marketing and branding for it. You guys can of course check this out. Close-ups on all the buttons, tally lamp, multiple record buttons. It has a record button on the front, so if you're shooting yourself, you can push that as opposed to, I don't know how much help that really is, but yeah, so here we go. We're talking about the sensor. It is 4K digital film sensor, sure, but it is a 4K sensor. Which is awesome. You know, the old Pocket was only 1080 RAW still, which was amazing, which this one will do as well. It will do 4K RAW, and we'll get into that. But so the big thing about this sensor for me is that it is dual ISO. So that seems to be the new thing that everybody's talking about, wanting dual ISO. What that means is that there are two ISOs at which the sensor should perform its best, both a low one and a high one. And I asked because Grant did not have the information in the Blackmagic press conference to put out there what the ISOs were, and that was just simply because he hadn't asked the guys to make sure he had it. It's not because they don't know. They do know. It is 400 and 3200. So those are your two native ISOs on this camera. So the theory is that at 400 it'll be super clean, and at 3200 it will be super clean. And then it'll adjust which ISO it's using based on what you're set at. Now let's talk about that for a second, because this is something that I did ask about. So I wanted to know, because there were questions about the GH5S when it came out with its dual ISO capability. Sorry, I'm gonna get a drink of water here, guys. Excuse me. But people had questions about, well, when is it using what ISO? At what point does it switch over to the other ISO? So if I'm shooting, you know, and it's at native ISO 400 and I start cranking up, at what point does it stop taking 400 and increasing the gain and switch over to 3200 and start decreasing the gain? Like, where is that flip-flop? And they weren't exactly sure. It is an engineering question. And so he said he's guessing, this was Dan from Blackmagic, answered it as best he possibly could, guys. So thank you to him for that. But he's guessing it's about 1100 is where it'll flip over to 3200 and start reducing. So somewhere between 800 and 1600 is where it makes the decision to switch to the higher native ISO of 3200. So that's the information that I have for you guys. Let's see here. We got a couple people popping in the chat. Jake is here. Was just watching your NAB video. Looked like a blast. Yeah, thank you, man. That video is up for you guys to go and check out. And I will admit, it was a blast to make, and I think it really did sort of sum up what it's like to spend a day at NAB. So make sure you guys go and check that thing out. It's definitely a different style from what I've done before, but it was really fun. So let's go back to this camera here. Again, with that sensor, you know, you've got the dual ISO up to 25,600, but of course, you know, that's pointless. You know, 25,600 is going to look like garbage. So that's just, you know, the high range. When they list, oh, it goes all the way up to this. Yeah, but it looks like trash. So whatever, you know, you're going to be closer to that 3200 range in your max for usable image quality. But these are the cool things. So recorded up to 60 frames per second in 4K and up to 120 frames per second in windowed HD. So I'll tell you about that. But yeah, this is RAW. It'll do 4K, 60 RAW internal. That's amazing. Basically, this thing has the same recording specs for the most part as the Ursa Mini 4.6 and the Ursa Mini Pro. So, you know, you've got that 4K, you've got it in ProRes, and you've got it in RAW, both up to 60 frames per second. There is no ProRes RAW in this camera. A lot of misinformation going around about that. The new ProRes RAW format was released at the show. Right now, the only implementation is in Atomos recorders. It's being put in there, and only Final Cut can edit it, and DJI is adding it to their ZenMuse X7 high-end camera. But there is no ProRes RAW in this right now. Asked them about it. They said, sure, it's a possibility in the future, but right now this is what we've got. And I'm fine with it, but I just don't want people spreading misinformation out there. So about that 120 frames per second, it says windowed HD. It's the same as the Ursa Mini. So what the deal with that is, it'll do 120 frames per second, but you are shooting in 1080, and there is an additional crop. Now that's only at 120 frames per second. That's when you're getting really high speed. So you're going to want a seriously wide lens on there, because if you got, you know, a 4/3 sensor, you're already getting, you know, a crop, and then 1080, you're going to crop even more. Or 1080 120. There were some rumors out there. People were spreading misinformation saying that all HD is windowed on this. Not true, guys. Not true. You can use the full sensor in HD, but when you get to these high frame rates, that's when it windows in. So you're gonna need some really wide glass for that one. So there's that. But again, just stuff I wanted to clear up. So 13 stops of dynamic range. You know, we're all snobs about it now. We're like, why isn't it 15 or 16? This is pretty good for a camera that's coming out for $1,300, guys. That's crazy. 4K, 60p, RAW, 13 stops of dynamic range, $1,300. I don't know how much room we have to complain. But yeah, so like I said, micro 4/3 lens mount. Okay, before we get into the recording media and all that stuff, I see we had another comment come in, so let's go over to that. So we have Gear Jones here. If 3200 was one of the native ISOs, wouldn't you expect if you get a few more stops above that and still get a decent image? Yes, you would expect that. You would expect that if, you know, since you have dual native ISOs, you know, as you go from 400 and start increasing, obviously you're going to introduce more noise into your image. But then the theory here with all dual ISO cameras is that then you can sort of reset at 3200 and it should be clean. And as you go up from there, you should get cleaner. You should also have cleaner images. You know, of course, you'll be introducing more noise from that. However, when I was using the camera, 3200 did look clean, but even like 6400 and 12800 were looking pretty noisy. Now, let me say in their defense, they have not finished optimizing the sensor performance for this yet. Okay, so this is not a finished camera. It's not due to release until September, and it is not finished. What we had on the floor there was not finished. So they're still going to work to make sure that they get the best performance out of that sensor and all that stuff. So any video that somebody may have released from the show, they weren't allowing us to record in the camera because it's not ready yet. But anybody's comments on, oh, it was noisy, oh, the color didn't look right, oh, this, those are all irrelevant right now because all of that is going to change as they finish the development on this camera. So commenting on image quality or ISO performance right now is just a complete moot point. However, I do hope that they get that performing really well, because I was seeing some noise that I would consider a bit of an issue even at like 6400, and that's, you know, you're just bumping one stop up from 3200 at that point. So yeah, I do hope they get that ironed out. Let's see what we got here. Let's see here. 13 stops with RAW, probably not with ProRes. No, I believe it should still be with ProRes. It looks very, very similar to the Ursa Mini 4.6 there. I can't guarantee that, so again, this is just information that's been relayed to me, so I'm not going to try and speculate beyond what I can actually confirm for you guys. So let's see here. Jesse, good to see me live. Well, good to see you in here live with me. That's awesome. Thank you for joining. George Bolden, yeah, for $1,300, yeah, I mean, how much can we really complain? Obviously not a camera for everybody, but $1,300, excuse me, guys, that's pretty amazing. Let's see here. Doug Funny, great name, man. Would mounting on a gimbal be a problem? I saw one guy on Instagram say Blackmagic mentioned that the Moza is the only one that works so far for the plate width. Yeah, so it is a wider camera, so of course I can't confirm or deny whether it fits on gimbals because I haven't tried it on different gimbals, but it is wider than you would expect for something called Pocket, and I'll show you some photos of that in just a moment. More gain, more noise. Nothing is free. Yeah, this is physics, guys, or electronics, or whatever you want to call it. That's how it works. Let's see here. Jesse is curious about real application battery life. Yeah, so again, something I can't comment on for how long it lasts, but we do know that it has a Canon LP-E6 battery, which is awesome. I always have a few of those lying around, and I'm sure a lot of other people do too. So hopefully we're going to have battery life that's much better than the old Pocket, because that was a big issue on that one. So let's go ahead. I'm going to show you guys some photos actually real quick. Since we had some questions about the size of this camera before we start diving into the rest of the stuff here. So here we go. These are some photos at the show. Obviously, this is me here checking out the camera. It has the Lumix 12-35 version 1 lens on it right here, in case anybody was curious. But so yeah, there is me checking out the camera. Let's see here. Can I go? Okay, so here we go. So I brought my Panasonic GH5 with me. It's what I was shooting the show with, and placed them side by side. So here you go. You can see, obviously that screen is gigantic. It's actually a really gorgeous screen, guys. But yeah, it is big, and it makes the camera wider than a GH5. So as we move along here, here they are again side by side. So I have the 12-35 version 2 on my camera, but they are about the same size. So this is a really good comparison. They basically have the same lens on them. But yeah, so it's pretty sweet. So here's a top down. You can really see that it is much wider than the GH5, but the GH5 is a pretty small sized camera in all comparisons. A lot of people were comparing the size and weight of the Blackmagic to like a Canon 5D. So if you've ever held one of those. So here's some more shots here, guys. There's my buddies, Alan Meyer and Chris Rowe. Good to see you guys. But so here, if you're familiar with the operating system of like the Ursa Mini, it is identical, guys. It has this touchscreen where you can go and touch everything and do all your settings. Really, really like the operation of this camera. When they changed that operating system for the Ursa Mini, they did a fantastic job, guys. I really, really like it. So it is like an Ursa Mini. And actually, they told me that they were thinking about calling it actually the Ursa Micro. But they went with Pocket camera just to continue on that line. But you can think of it like an Ursa Micro. So here I am holding it, guys. So I do have, fairly large hands, but it is a big, beefy grip. So it is a sizable camera. It's not super heavy, and actually that is even going to change. The models that we had at the show were made of aluminum, but the final version is going to be a carbon fiber and composite material that is actually going to make it lighter weight than it was. So anybody who's commenting on the weight of it from the show, don't listen to them, because it's not the final weight. It doesn't matter. So we're going to go here. So here's some more of it, guys. No hot shoe on top, quarter 20 instead. Not sure what the rationale was behind that. But yeah, a few more shots of the camera here. And that's what we got. So let's come back here, guys. So as you can see, I did get really, I had plenty of time to sit down and be personal with the camera and hands-on and ask questions. So I do feel that I am in a good position to answer questions. I was not stuck there with shoulder-to-shoulder people next to me at the booth, everybody trying to get hands-on with it. I did get to sit in a nice quiet area with Dan, the rep from Blackmagic, and my buddies, and take a look at this thing. So those are the photos that I took of it. We got a lot of comments coming in here, so let's go ahead and take a look. Let's see here. So yeah, we were talking about LPE6. Drew says, I've got to run, but interested in the camera, so you'll watch the replay. Well, I'm sorry I missed you popping in and then out, guys, or Drew, but yeah, definitely check out the replay, man. I'm going to try and make sure to get all the information that I can out about this camera. Let's see here. So Trevor says, I'm not a fan of the handheld ergonomic layout, but for me this would spend most of its time on sticks. Yeah, it's not particularly comfortable handheld. It is big. It's not heavy. Like, you're not sitting there like, oh my goodness. But it is large. And of course, no stabilization or anything. You know, that's not something that Blackmagic's ever had. So shooting handheld, you know, might not be the easiest thing. And yeah, I mean, this would probably for me be an interview B camera for my Ursa. And yeah, it would be on a tripod for me if I pick this thing up. Let's see here. Gear Jones, any dedicated buttons for frame rate, ISO, white balance, etc.? Yes, actually. Let me find the photo here. So yes, there are dedicated buttons. So let's see. So not these ones. Okay, so you can see these three up top. Let's see if I can get a better shot. Okay, so here we go. We've got ISO right here, white balance right here, and shutter speed right here. So there are physical buttons dedicated to those. You can, of course, always do it with the touch screen. You can touch any of the, let's see. You can touch any of these. So if you touch white balance, you can change your white balance. If you touch shutter, you can change your shutter. So you can see how it's actually on shutter right here, and all that stuff. And if you look right here, this HFR button, that's your high frame rate button. So if you want to preset in there, like, okay, I want to shoot at that, you know, 120 frames per second, you can hit that button and it'll bring you into that mode. So yes, there are dedicated buttons for that. Good question, yeah. Let's see here. Trevor says, I think I'm still keeping my existing pocket. Yeah, you know, people are really divided on this camera. So, you know, whether it's for you or not for you, I'm not judging. It's, you know, it's a decent $1,300 camera. Casper, does it have a flip screen? No, it does not. So the screen does not flip. It does not articulate. It does not do anything. The screen is fixed in the camera. It is touchscreen, but yeah, no articulation, no flipping, no swiveling, no nothing, no none of that. And let's see here. And Derek says, I actually like the hand feel. Okay. See, it's a completely subjective thing. I personally did not like the handheld feel of it, but you know, it's something, guys. It's like any camera. You got to try it yourself and see if it's for you, because it could come down to, you know, preference of ergonomics. On paper, we have all the specs, but you know, that is what it is. Gear Jones, nav wheel or joysticks? No, everything's done through the touchscreen or through the buttons. So there's no jog wheel, there's no joystick, there's no nothing like that. There's not even like a D-pad thing to go around. But their operating system that's on it is pretty easy to navigate with that touchscreen. So there's that. But yeah, none of that other stuff. So let's go ahead and take a peek here, because the next thing I want to talk to you guys about is the recording media, which is pretty cool. So I'm sure you guys saw, but it has it can take SD cards or CFast 2.0 cards. So again, very similar to the Ursa Mini Pro at this point, where they introduced those. So what it is obviously you can shoot most of the codecs in it, the ProRes and that kind of stuff, to SD cards. Now, which SD cards, how fast and all that kind of stuff for different resolutions and frame rates, I don't know yet. So that, I'm sure, will be a topic of great debate later on. But RAW, and especially the higher, you know, 4K 60 RAW, you're going to need those CFast cards. And CFast can be really expensive because CFast 2.0 is still relatively new and it is an expensive format. However, guys, they did have a pretty cool party trick for this thing, and that is this USB-C connection port. So with the USB-C connection port, and Grant actually demoed this during the press conference, you can connect an external drive and record to it. Now, let's put the disclaimer up here. Obviously, your performance and what you can record and whether you drop frames and stuff is going to be dependent upon the capabilities of the drive you're connecting to it. They are demonstrating it here with a Samsung SSD, the T5. Okay, if you look at those, they are not cheap either. You're getting, for $400, you can get a terabyte one. Now, granted, that's much cheaper than it is in comparison to CFast cards, but you know, if you take and plug in like a Western Digital spinning drive and plug it in there, I don't know what the performance is going to be like. And also spinning drives, you probably don't want to be holding them while recording to it. Obviously you can Velcro it somewhere or whatever, but this is probably going to be better performance with SSDs, which is going to cost money, but it is pretty awesome that you can do that. So yeah, they're saying, you know, this can be important while shooting high quality lossless 12-bit RAW, even high frame rate 60 frames per second 4K. So all of the codecs that it records, including that top of the line 12-bit 60 frames per second 4K RAW, can be recorded out through that USB-C. But guys, like I said, it's dependent upon your media. So don't be surprised when you have to drop a couple $100 on an SSD for this, and don't be mad because I told you so and they told you so. So yeah, that is pretty freaking sweet that's there. So I've already talked about this, guys, but this is the operating system, you know, the same OS as like the Ursa Mini and the Ursa Mini Pro, which I personally love when they updated that and changed it around. So I really like that. So that 5-inch touchscreen, guys, that controls everything here. So audio, we'll get into audio next, but let's take a peek in the comments, guys, and we'll address a few of those. So let's see what we got here. Trevor says, I'm super interested in the heat performance of the body. There's a ton of processing power in there. Okay, so that's a good question. So I did ask them about heat. They said and admitted that, yeah, the bodies that they had there at the show, you know, they're on constantly all day and people are using them, so they got warm. Not hot, not like uncomfortable, but they got warm. But again, we're not going to know what the performance is like yet because these were made of aluminum and the final is going to be made of a composite and carbon fiber material, which they are hoping will help to reduce heat. And it does have fans around the sensor turret, is what I'd like to call it there. And it does have fans that that pull air in and are actively pushing air out. Fans don't make any noise, guys. I did check, but you can feel the heat being pumped out the bottom of that thing. So it is actively cooling that sensor and everything using fans. And so they're hoping, you know, obviously this thing hasn't been out in the desert or anything like that shooting, but it looks like they're planning on not having any overheating issues. Again, it is still a larger camera, so I think it should perform pretty good. But I can't say because I haven't taken it to the Sahara and shot it in the bright sun all day or anything like that yet, but they do have heat performance in mind with that cooling. So let's see what we got here. What are the frame rates and megabits per second recording 1080? Okay. So 1080p is going to be all the way up to 120 frames per second. So when you're shooting 120 frames per second, it's going to be windowed on the sensor, so you're going to get a little bit of a crop. I'm not sure what that crop factor is, so we'll wait and see what that is exactly. But yeah, 1080 will go up to 120 frames per second. Of course, you've got all your others. You got your 24, your 25, your 2997, your 50, all that stuff. So you can do all that. In terms of megabits per second, that depends on which codec you are using to record. If you are using ProRes, you've got ProRes Proxy, ProRes LT, ProRes 422, and ProRes HQ in it. The only ProRes it does not have that the Ursa Mini does is the 4444, and so it's going to record at the bit rates that those codecs record at. I don't know them offhand, but if you look up what the recording bit rates are for those ProRes different formats, that's what it's going to record at. Or if you're recording RAW, it's you know, up to 12-bit RAW. So that's pretty awesome. So let's see here. Hey Bart, congrats on the 10K. Thank you very, very much. Yeah, that's right. That happened just a few weeks ago. That was a huge milestone. And thank you guys for that. That's awesome. Question, why do companies keep going with CFast 2.0? It's only going up in price. Lexar going out of business just destroyed the market. How many CFast cards do you have? Okay, so companies are going with CFast because CFast really is the next iteration in card standards. We've pretty much maxed out the speeds that we can do with SD. We went from regular SD to SDXC to, okay, now we're at UHS 2 and going faster, but we're pretty much maxing those out. And so CFast came along and really is the newest technology that can continue to have upgraded speeds and sizes and all that kind of stuff. So companies are going with CFast because it is pretty much going to be the standard. So XQD is another format that's out there, but that's pretty much Sony's format. And so it's in Sony and it's in Nikon. But CFast is available to all brands to put in their cameras. So it's not, XQD isn't necessarily proprietary, but it's a Sony card. It's a Sony design, okay? So Lexar going out of business, they were one of the big makers of CFast. SanDisk makes CFast now. There's a company called Angelbird that makes CFast, and I own a few of their cards. I don't agree that prices for CFast are going up. They are coming down. So if you look at the cost of Angelbird CFast 2.0 cards, I got two 256 gig ones, I think, for $800. Meanwhile, a Lexar 256 gig was $700 for one. And it's going to come down as time goes on. But yeah, I mean, it's expensive. The kind of data that we're pushing to these things, guys, is really no joke. And so CFast is what it is. And your last thing was, how many CFast cards do I have? I have too many. No, I have two Lexar 128 cards. I have one Lexar 256, and I have two of those Angelbird 256 cards. So yeah, that's a lot of money in cards. But yeah, it is what it is, guys. But the price of those cards is something that I want to make people aware of, because people see this camera and they see $1,300 and they see RAW and they see 4K 60 and all this stuff. But I don't think they're really prepared for the additional cost involved in handling that kind of data. In terms of CFast media is going to be expensive. Media at home to store this stuff is going to be expensive. And then computing power to be able to edit and utilize this stuff is going to be expensive too. It's unfortunately, there's no way of getting around. There is no cheap RAW workflow. This is a cheap RAW acquisition solution, which is amazing, but your back end is still going to catch some people off guard and piss them off a little bit. So let's see here. Trevor says, megabits per second for 1080 is a lot higher than people think. It's hundreds and hundreds. Yeah, because using those ProRes codecs, man, it's pushing some serious data. Jake says, the nice thing about directly to a drive would be to speed up your workflow. Instead of copying or moving data, you could just plug the external drive into your PC. Yeah, so using that USB-C thing, Grant demoed this in their press conference, which of course is available on YouTube. But yeah, he demoed it. He plugged it right in. He recorded us. I'm actually in the second row, and I'm in the shot. Pretty cool. But he recorded us, and then he went right to the computer, plugged the drive, he took it out, disconnected it from the camera, plugged it right into the computer, opened it up, and literally just dragged the clip immediately into a resolved timeline and was editing it in like 10 seconds. So yeah, workflow stuff, that USB-C port recording to external media, pretty cool. All right, so let's go ahead and let's keep plugging along. There's a lot of stuff to talk about in this. One thing that not a lot of people consider or talk about is audio. And a lot of people had audio complaints about some of the early Blackmagics, but this one has a mini XLR input. So it's not full-size XLR, guys, but it is a mini XLR input, so you can input Pro XLR inputs into it. It does have 48-volt phantom power, which is nice to see. And this guy also has a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack and a 3.5 millimeter mic jack. So if you want to throw a Video Mic Pro on there or something like that, you don't want to use XLR, you've got both of those. I don't know where you're going to mount a shotgun mic like the Video Mic Pro on it, because there's no freaking hot shoe, but you can do it. You can run 3.5 millimeter or you can run mini XLR in there. And so you'll just need an adapter to adapt to full-size XLR, guys. Shouldn't be too bad. But so here we go. Connections. So we're going to talk about the connection ports. Full-size HDMI out. I know a lot of people were kind of, why no SDI? It probably would have cost a couple $100 more if they implemented SDI. Just is what it is, guys. So full-size HDMI out. That is nice that it's full-size. Output on it is 1080 only, okay? So if you thought you were going to be outputting 4K off of this thing and sending it to, I don't know, a recorder, not sure why you would do that because you can record RAW and ProRes inside this thing. You're not going to be able to do that in 4K. It is only 1080 output. It is truly intended for monitoring, okay? So there's that. And another thing that I wanted to say, let me jump back here, guys, talking about these cards. So dual slot, so I did ask them if there was dual recording available, and there is not. So I asked them, you know, can I be recording RAW to one and maybe like a ProRes proxy to the other to speed up my workflow? As of right now, no, you can't do it. And he said he thinks it's a hardware limitation in it, that it's not something that just with firmware they could do. So no dual recording in this one, guys. But I did ask. And even there are some minis don't do dual recording, I don't believe. So, but anyway, back to our connectors here. So yeah, we got that mini XLR audio for input. It does have a, you know, a 3-pin power down here if you want to power it DC power. That full-size HDMI, the USB-C expansion port, and something interesting about that USB-C expansion port is that you can charge the battery over that USB-C plug. It says it right here on the website, which is really interesting to me because I asked them at the show if it was possible to power the camera through that, and they said no. So maybe it won't power the camera, like you can't switch the camera on, but if the camera's turned off, it says that it will charge the battery over that USB-C. I don't know, maybe there was some mix-up. Maybe you can power this thing off of a USB battery bank over that USB-C. We'll have to wait and see because it seems like I'm getting some conflicted information there. So we'll have to wait and check that out. But it says that you can power it there. So, and of course it has that DC plug to be able to power it over, you know, from the wall. Okay, comments. Yeah, okay. You're right, Bart. I have the Ursa and use the Blackmagic SSD attachment. Okay. People buying the Pocket Cinema 4K will be very surprised with prices when they look to buy storage for it. Yeah, I mean, there's so many parts to a RAW workflow, and acquisition is only one of them. And the camera is even a small part of acquisition. You know, you need that media to record to. And so, you know, people are, you know, looking at this thing for $1,300, but you need to really be aware that there's going to be some investment in the back end if you don't already have that infrastructure in place. So I already shoot with CFast. I already have way too much storage, you know, a server here with hundreds and hundreds of terabytes and all that stuff, and I have a fairly powerful editing machine. So for me, this might be a decent option because I'm ready to work with that workflow because I already do. But people just need to be aware of that. Trevor backs that up, says, yeah, it will not be a cheap camera to operate. Yeah, I mean, it can be. You can shoot beautiful 1080 with this thing, I'm sure. You know, dual ISO 1080p ProRes to SD cards and be fine. But and that's not going to cost you much. But if you want to be in that upper echelon and really push this thing and max out its capabilities, that's where you're going to be spending the money. So yeah, it has the flexibility. It can very easily just pop an SD card in there and run off and shooting. You're just not going to get those higher resolutions and RAW and all that kind of stuff. So let's see here. Mini XLR is good. I can vouch for it on the Video Assist 4K. The signal to noise ratio is very good. Also a secure connection, not flimsy. So yeah, that's not something I know about. I don't know what their signal to noise ratio is like in this camera. I don't know how the preamp is. So we'll have to wait and see for audio. But realistically, usually guys, when I'm shooting with my Blackmagic cameras, usually I'm recording audio separately. That's just me. But we'll have to wait and see what recording inside this thing over the mini XLR sounds like, and see how they did with the preamps in it. Does it have a global shutter? No, it does not. So I want to talk about this with the sensor here for a sec, guys. So it is that 4/3 sensor. It is not a global shutter. It will not be a global shutter. There is no talk or intention of that or anything. But since it has that dual native ISO, a lot of people were speculating, oh, it's the GH5S sensor. It's the GH5S sensor. Let me tell you, it is not the GH5S sensor. So I asked Blackmagic, what is the sensor in this thing? And what they told me is that they didn't know, so they couldn't tell me, because engineering is kind of hanging on to that information and not even telling them, the reps, what it is. But while they wouldn't tell them what it is, they would answer in the negative when asked if it was certain sensors. So what I mean by that is they sort of asked, hey, is this that GH5S sensor? And while they wouldn't tell them what the sensor is, they would said it's not that. So let's dispel all of those rumors that this is the GH5S sensor. It is not. I don't know where the sensor came from. They wouldn't tell me and couldn't tell me because they haven't even been told. So we'll have to wait and see where this sensor was sourced from. It is not Blackmagic's own sensor that they designed, like the 4.6 sensor was. The 4.6K sensor was the first one that they actually, co-designed and developed specifically for their camera. This is back to sort of their older style where they're borrowing an existing sensor and making it work for them. So I don't know where it came from, and that's where we're going to leave it right now. So anybody who wants to go out there and speculate, go for it, but just know that it is not the GH5S sensor. So there we go. All right, what do we got here? The body's only a small part of any filming system. Yeah, I mean, cameras, if you think about it, they're really the most interchangeable and replaced part of the entire filmmaking setup. So, yeah. Gear Jones, remember you need a high bitrate SD card, something like V60 or V90. So they haven't commented on that actually, Derek. And if it's anything like the Ursa Mini Pro, which is what I assume it is like, I don't think you need V60 or V90 for all of those things. Now, it's going to depend on what format you want to shoot, so you're going to want to look into that. But I'm pretty sure even with just U3 cards, you can do some basic ProRes shooting. I could be wrong on that, but somebody who has an Ursa Mini Pro, maybe let me know about what you're able to do with the SD cards in that, because I think it's going to be a direct translation to what you're able to do with the SD cards in this camera. Let's see here. Man, guys, I gotta tell you, with it being like warm in Maryland now and this room being closed up and with all this equipment in here, it's hot in here. I gotta figure out a cooling solution for this freaking room. So sorry if I start like sweating on the stream here. Gear Jones, is there any IR protection in front of the sensor? I don't know. That's a good question. I should have asked that. I don't know. I don't know if there's an IR filter in front of it. My bad. I had so many things to ask, and I think I got 90% of them out. But I can't confirm or deny that right now. So, sorry, my bad. All right, let's go back and keep looking at this guy here. Okay, yeah. Includes DaVinci Resolve Studio. Yeah, but let's be realistic. All their cameras do. Oh, okay, so we're coming to the end there. So yeah, Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, $12.95. Why the original cinema camera or the Pocket Cinema Camera hasn't dropped in price, I don't know. But yeah, so let's see what we got here, guys. Anything that we missed along the way here? We talked about that touchscreen. We talked about all that. We talked about SSD recording. Talked about Micro Four Thirds, talked about that sensor, talked about the design. We took a look at my photos of it. And all right, cool. So I'm gonna back us back out. So let's keep going through and answer some questions. See if there's anything you guys want to know about that maybe I skipped over. There's a lot of information here, so I could be leaving something out. So please let me know if there is something that you want to know. And also let me know, guys, are you going to buy this? So I'm interested, but I'm not going to pre-order it because I want to see what the image looks like. So, you know, the sensor performance and the color science is not yet finalized. So anything that you see from NAB or anybody who's commenting on what they saw image-wise on the back of that screen is completely irrelevant because it's all going to change. So I really want to see some footage coming out. You know, I would like to be able to be hands on it and stick a card in it and shoot some stuff and play with it. Maybe they'll do the same thing that they did with the Ursa Mini 4.6, and they'll release sample footage that you can download and grade and play with. That would be awesome, because really the image quality is what matters for me, because I'm looking for a B cam for the Ursa Mini. So, you know, that's what this would be. This wouldn't be an A cam for me. So let me know if it would be an A cam for you, or what you guys are thinking about it, and if you would like to pick this camera up. So, you know, there may be some people where this is the absolute perfect camera for them. And let me know if that's you. And there may be other people who this just missed the mark completely. And I know there's a lot of people like that out there. So let's hear what you guys think. But let's go through some comments here. Where were we? Michael, hey Bart, I'm a Sony shooter, but I'm thinking about getting the pocket camera. Do you know if there's a Micro Four Thirds to E-mount adapter? Yes. Wait. Ooh, to E-mount. Oh, I don't know. Because E-mount is a really, really shallow flange distance. I'm not sure if you can adapt. The good thing about E-mount is you can adapt everything to it. But the bad thing about it is you can't always adapt it to something else. And my theory is that no, you can't. But I don't know. We'd have to check what the flange distance is on this particular camera, but I don't think so, man. So I think you might be out of luck with your E-mount class. But that's a good question. I didn't think about that. Let's see here. Does it have global shutter? Okay, we did that. Trevor says, true, most of my money is in lenses, storage, and processing, not bodies. Yeah, camera bodies come and go. I mean, every year, something new, something better, something faster. Investing in lenses, making sure you've got a good storage solution, and making sure you've got a powerful computer really are the best investments for me. You know, it's the same thing. You know, cameras are going to keep getting better and better, faster and faster, and trying to keep up. You're never going to be able to keep up with it, man. It'll be crazy. So let's see here. It looks like I missed some, and now we're getting back to it. So, okay. Okay, so Trevor says, in terms of the E-mounts, E to Micro Four Thirds, there are a couple, but the problem is the flange distance of Sony E-mount and MFT are virtually the same, maybe 8 minutes, so it's finicky. Okay, so Trevor, thanks for letting us know that. So he's saying that, you know, E-mount flange distance and Micro Four Thirds flange distance are actually really, really close to identical. So it may even vary depending on what lens you have on there, if it's going to focus properly and all that. So, yeah, trying to adapt E-mount to this camera might be more of a headache than you're looking for, unfortunately. But Micro Four Thirds glass is cheap in comparison to other lenses. You know, yeah, you can get really expensive ones, but you can also get really decent ones that are small, light, and affordable. So there you go. Okay. Is the rolling shutter faster than that in the 5D Mark II? So I didn't test the rolling shutter. I didn't see how it reacted. I didn't, like, you know, whip pan the thing all over the place and check that out. But I can say with confidence that, yeah, it's probably better than the 5D Mark II. 5D Mark II is full frame. 5D Mark II is old. And yeah, those two things alone. This being a smaller sensor, and they've got some serious processing power to read that sensor pretty quickly. I have a feeling this is going to have pretty good rolling shutter performance. Again, I didn't try it, but all the specs and logic would say that this thing is probably rolling shutter artifacting is not going to be an issue for you. Let's see here. Well, the original is still the only small body camera recording RAW and ProRes. So how much could it drop? I want to see it go back to $500. You know, it was $500 for like a month there, long ago. They had a sale on it, and I feel like everybody who bought that thing bought it during that $500 sale, and then it's sat at like $1,000 for the past like 3 years. Like, bump it down a little. I don't know, make it $750 with, you know, with this thing here now. I don't know. I'm just being picky, you know. Consumer who feels he's owed something, I guess, you know. We have a tendency to do that. We act like companies owe us. Like, they owe us this. They don't owe us anything. Let's be honest, guys, you know. We're just being brats, but you know, we are what we are. So let's see here. George Bolden, I'm very interested in pending the image quality. Yeah, same for me. Everything else about this, I'm fine with. You know, I'm fine with this. I'm fine with the batteries. I'm fine with the external recording. I'm fine with the solution. I'm fine with the mount. I'm fine with all that stuff. So nothing here is telling me stay away from this. But so the only thing that matters to me now is that image quality. And until it's finalized, until they optimize that sensor, until they put all the resolutions and frame rates and all that stuff in it that they plan on, then only then will I know. But one thing I do want to say, I asked them about an anamorphic mode, because right now there is no anamorphic in it. Of course, all subject to change, guys. You know, they can add and remove whatever they want in sort of firmware. But I was like, you know, you've got a 4/3 sensor, so why not put it in anamorphic mode? And they said, yeah, they might consider it. Right now at the show, all it had was DCI 4K, so it does do that, UHD, and 1080. Okay, so that was all that they put in it for the show. That's what it had there. But you know, the Ursa Mini, I was like, you know, you've got 3K anamorphic, you've got all this kind of stuff, and this one, considering it's a 4/3 sensor, you've got that 4:3 aspect ratio. That's what makes the GH5 perfect for shooting anamorphic, because you can squeeze it and use the whole sensor. I asked them about putting anamorphic in this, and they said, yeah, maybe they will. You know, so we'll have to wait and see, guys, you know, what other resolutions and capabilities they're going to add to this thing in software, because it's not finished yet. It's still pretty awesome right now, but it has the potential to become even more awesome. I just think with a 4/3 sensor, putting anamorphic in it is a no-brainer. I just really do. So, but let's see here. Jake says, did Blackmagic say who they targeted with this camera? Studio, broadcast, hybrid, etc. No, they did not say, but in a way they kind of mentioned it. So Grant actually introduced the camera literally by saying, we have been asked in every single meeting, when is this coming? When is this coming? When is this coming? So basically they're saying they made it for everyone who has been bugging them for it. So whether that's broadcast, indie filmmaker, or whatever, I don't know, but they made it for the masses that just won't shut up. Which I was one of too. You know, last year I was expecting it and wanting it and all that stuff. So they made it for us. So that's the best I can say for you. Let's see here. Sounds like the perfect B cam for the Ursa Mini. Can you tell me which lenses you use on your Ursa? So on my Ursa Mini, I use a Canon 24-105 f4L. I really like that lens. I also have a full set of the Rokinon Cine DS lenses, the 14, 24, 35, 50, and 85. So I use those as my full manual primes. I also have a Tamron 70-200 version 1, but I really don't ever shoot that kind of really long focal length, so I'm probably going to get rid of that. But yeah, so those are the lenses. I use Canon lenses. And I just adapt the EF mount to whatever else. So obviously the Ursa Mini is a native EF, so I'd put it on there, but I use a speed booster for my GH5 to bring it down to micro 4/3. And if I got this camera, I'd probably do the same, micro 4/3 speed booster on it, and attach my EF lenses to this guy. So let's see here. Alex says, loved your vlog coverage of NAB. Thank you very much. That was a really fun video to make. And guys, if you're not sure what he's mentioning, earlier today I released my my vlog style tour of NAB. Took you guys with me on first day of NAB. So there's a link to that down in the description below. So make sure you guys go check that out. It's a really fun video. It's actually really fun to do. I really enjoyed I enjoyed vlogging more than I thought I would. So I might be in trouble with that one, but we'll see what happens going into the future. So the Post Color blog says, I hear you on the Micro Four lens more. Good Lord, tongue-tied. I hear you on the Micro Four Thirds lenses. I love Micro Four Thirds glass. The 12 to 40 millimeter Olympus is beautiful. I'd love to use that on this camera. P.S. Great meeting you at the press conference, man. Hey, oh, that's right. We did meet. We were hanging out outside. Great meeting you there, and I'm glad to see you here in the show. So guys, the Post Color blog, I met him waiting for the press conference, and we were in there together. And go and check out his channel, man, the Post Color blog. But yeah, you know, I don't have a big collection of Micro Four Thirds glass, but what I like about Micro Four Thirds is that I can adapt any of my glass to it. So, you know, I used to be a huge sensor snob, guys. I would not even consider Micro Four Thirds. I would not even look at it. It was like the redheaded stepchild, and man, I just was not having it. But the GH5 has just opened, you know, my world, and I do kind of like Micro Four Thirds. Just saying that, you know, it's melted my icy heart, and now I'm open to all sensor sizes. So there we go. Trevor says, they made this camera because of lack of a replacement for the Blackmagic Cinema Camera, and the Blackmagic Pocket Camera left a hole in the market. This camera is not a pocket successor in my view. It does make sense for Blackmagic though. Yeah, and like I said, they fully admitted that this is not pocketable, and they even said that they were tossing up whether to call this thing the Pocket 4K or to call it the Ursa Micro. So they know what it is. They know it's not that little pocket thing. But to sort of carry on that pocket line as opposed to having something else in the Ursa line, they went with calling it the Pocket 4K. It's just a name, guys. But, I mean, look at the thing. We know what it is. But there we go. All right, coming down to our last comments. Comment about the Vedra Prime line for Micro Four Thirds. Okay, yeah, I've never used those myself, but I really would love to. So guys, we're coming in right about at an hour right now. So I think we covered a lot of ground today. Hopefully I answered any questions that you guys had. And we're just going to have to wait and see what the image performance ends up being like on this camera. I am interested in it, but I am by no means rushing to throw my money at it right now. I need to see the image quality, and it's unfinished. So anybody out there who is saying I used it at NAB and I saw the image quality and it's a touch green or it looks like this, don't listen to them. It doesn't matter. It's not finished. But there we go, guys. So I really appreciate you guys coming and hanging out. It is fantastic to be back live. I missed you guys. You know, I was traveling so much. NAB was fantastic. I wanted to share all this stuff with you guys. Make sure you go check out my NAB video, because that thing was a lot of fun. And that'll give you some more updates on what I saw at the show. You know, obviously I knew that this topic was going to be a show all of its own. Yeah, guys, but check that out. It's amazing being back live for you guys. We are going to get back on our every Saturday schedule. Looks like I'm going to be home for a while now. A while being like 2 weeks before I'm off again, whatever. But what I'm trying to say in a long roundabout fashion is we will be live again next Saturday, 1 p.m. So make sure that you subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed already, and click that notification bell so you get notifications whenever I go live or post videos. Because yes, I still do make pre-edited videos, as evidenced by my NAB vlog video that I've already mentioned. But yeah, guys, make sure to turn that notification on so that you guys can always check out what I've got for you. So I'm not sure what our topic is going to be next week. I barely even pulled this show together, you know, coming back from NAB, so I haven't had time to pre-plan. But we will have a show next Saturday, and I'll try and have a good topic for us, guys. But in the meantime, you guys take care of yourselves. Get out there onto the rumor mills and the forums, and stop all those people who are spreading misinformation about this camera, and tell them that you know the truth because you heard it from me and I heard it from Blackmagic, and so we're the authorities on this now. But guys, always a pleasure to see you, and I'll see you guys next week, and have fun, guys. All right, we'll see you.